I didn't realize the exact moment things stopped being normal with Archer, but if I had to pick one, it was probably the night he fell asleep on my shoulder and didn't move. Not even when I shifted. Not even when I stopped breathing for a second, waiting to see if he'd wake up and pull away like a normal friend would. He didn't. And that should have been my first clue. But I was stupid back then. Or maybe just in denial. My name's Christopher, and Archer had been my best friend for almost 3 years at that point. We met in college, nothing dramatic, just two guys stuck in the same group project who realized we had the same sarcastic sense of humor and zero patience for everyone else. It was easy with him. Effortless. We'd grab food, binge dumb shows, complain about classes, all the usual stuff. He was the kind of guy everyone liked without trying, confident without being arrogant, funny without forcing it. The type who could talk to literally anyone. And yeah, he was attractive too. I noticed that pretty early on, but I buried it just as fast. Because Archer was straight. At least, that's what I told myself. He dated girls. Talked about girls. So whatever I felt didn't matter. I kept it locked down, filed away under "Don't be an idiot," and just stayed his friend. And honestly, for a long time, that was enough. Until things started shifting. Not all at once. Nothing obvious. Just small things that didn't quite fit anymore. Like how he started sitting closer. At first, it was just crowded couches, shared armrests, his knee bumping into mine and not moving away. Normal stuff. Easy to ignore. But then it kept happening, even when there was plenty of space. Or the way he touched me mid-conversation, grabbing my arm when he laughed, nudging my shoulder, letting his hand linger just a second longer than necessary. Again, subtle. But not nothing. I told myself I was imagining it. That I wanted it to mean something, so my brain was twisting normal behavior into something else. Because that's what happens, right? You read too much into things. You see what you want to see. I'd literally convinced myself of that, until that one night. We were at his place, just the two of us. It wasn't anything special, just takeout, beers, and some terrible action movie neither of us was really paying attention to. The kind of night we'd had 100 times before. Archer was stretched out on the couch, one arm thrown behind his head, the other resting way too casually on the cushion between us. I was sitting next to him, pretending to care about the movie while being painfully aware of how close his leg was to mine. "You're not even watching," he said suddenly. I glanced over. "Neither are you." He smirked. "I know, but I asked first." I rolled my eyes, taking a sip of my drink. "It's a bad movie. I'm allowed." He hummed, shifting slightly. Closer. His knee pressed against mine fully this time. Not a brush. Not accidental. Just there. And he didn't move it. I felt it instantly, like my entire body tuned into that one point of contact. Still, I kept my eyes on the screen. Didn't react. Didn't breathe too differently. Because if I acknowledged it, it became real. And I wasn't ready for that. A few minutes passed like that. Silence, except for the movie and the low hum of the city outside. Then Archer let out a quiet laugh at something on screen and leaned sideways. Right into me. His shoulder pressed against mine, his head tilting just slightly closer. "Dude," I muttered, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're crushing me." "Relax," he said, not moving. "You're comfortable." Comfortable. The word hit weird. Because yeah, I was. Too comfortable. Dangerously comfortable. I shifted a little, testing if he'd take the hint. He didn't. If anything, he leaned more. And then, like it was nothing, his head dropped fully onto my shoulder. I froze. Completely. My brain just stopped working for a second. "Archer," I said, quieter now. No response. I glanced down at him. His eyes were closed. "Are you serious?" I whispered. Still nothing. He looked peaceful. Like he just drifted off without a second thought. Like this, me, was a normal place for him to land. And that's what messed with me the most. Because for him, maybe it was. For me, it was everything. I sat there, barely moving, hyper aware of his weight against me, the slow rhythm of his breathing, the warmth of him. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. I don't even know. At some point, my body stopped being tense and just adjusted. Careful. Still. But not panicked anymore. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't one-sided confusion. Because people don't do this by accident. Not like this. Not repeatedly. Not comfortably. Something had changed. I just didn't know if Archer understood that yet. Or if I was about to find out the hard way. Looking back now, that was the beginning. Not the obvious kind. No big moment, no confession. Just a quiet shift. The kind you can ignore, until you can't anymore. And I definitely didn't realize yet how far it was going to go. But I was about to. Very soon. The next morning, I told myself it didn't mean anything. That was the first mistake. I woke up on Archer's couch, my neck stiff and my arm completely numb. For a second, I didn't even remember falling asleep. Then I felt it. Weight. Warmth. Breathing. My eyes snapped open, and there he was, still pressed against me, his head tucked into the crook of my neck now instead of my shoulder, like at some point during the night he'd shifted even closer. If anything, we were more tangled than before. His arm was loosely draped across my stomach. My hand, without me even realizing it, was resting against his side. I froze all over again. What the hell? I stayed completely still, staring at the ceiling, trying to process how we got here. Because falling asleep like that? Maybe explainable. But this was something else. And the worst part? He still hadn't moved. Like this was normal. Like waking up half on top of me wasn't going to be a big deal. I turned my head slightly, just enough to look down at him. His face was relaxed, hair messy, lips slightly parted as he breathed slow and even. Completely out. No tension. No hesitation. Just comfortable. And I hated how much I liked that. I swallowed hard, my heart already picking up speed. Okay. Options. I could move. Carefully. Slowly. Pretend nothing happened. Or. Christopher. My entire body tensed. His voice was rough with sleep, barely above a mumble, but it hit like a shock straight through me. He was awake. I didn't answer right away. Couldn't. Because suddenly everything felt too real. Yeah? I managed, keeping my voice low. He shifted slightly against me, not pulling away, just adjusting, like he was getting more comfortable. That alone made my chest tighten. You're awake, he said, like he was just confirming it. Yeah. A pause. Then, quieter, almost hesitant. You didn't move. I let out a small breath, somewhere between a laugh and something else. Neither did you. Another pause. Longer this time. I could feel the moment stretching, changing. Something unspoken sitting right between us. And neither of us was stepping away from it. I sleep like that sometimes, he said finally. It sounded like an explanation. Or maybe an excuse. On people? I asked. He huffed a soft laugh against my neck, the sound sending an unexpected shiver down my spine. Only the ones I like. That wasn't something I could brush off. I went completely still again. Because that crossed a line. Not a huge one. But enough. Enough that ignoring it felt impossible now. You mean, your friends? I said, even though the words felt off the second I said them. Archer didn't answer right away. Instead, his fingers shifted slightly where they rested against my stomach, not gripping, not pulling, just there. Aware. Intentional. Yeah, he said after a second. But it didn't sound convincing. At all. We stayed like that longer than we should have. Neither of us moving. Neither of us calling it out. Just existing in this weird in-between where everything felt different, but nothing had been said out loud yet. Eventually, I forced myself to shift. Slowly, carefully pulling away. Archer let me. No resistance. But the second the space was there, it felt wrong. Too empty. I stood up, stretching like it was just about my stiff muscles and not the fact that my head was spinning. Coffee? I asked, already moving toward the kitchen before he could answer. Yeah, he said, voice quieter now. I focused on that. On routine. On normal. Grabbing mugs. Pouring coffee. Anything to keep my hands busy and my thoughts from spiraling. Because if I let myself think about it too much, I wouldn't be able to pretend anymore. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. But Archer? He didn't seem as interested in pretending. I felt it before I even saw it. That shift in attention. The way someone looks at you when they're trying to figure something out. When I turned around, he was already watching me. Leaning against the counter, arms crossed loosely, eyes fixed on me in a way that made my stomach tighten. What? I asked, a little sharper than I meant to. He didn't look away. Nothing, he said. But he kept looking. And that was the problem. Because it wasn't nothing. Not anymore. That day should have reset things. It didn't. If anything, it made everything worse. Because once you notice something, you can't unsee it. And I started noticing everything. The way Archer hovered closer than usual. The way his voice dropped slightly when it was just the two of us. The way his touches weren't just casual anymore, they lingered, like he was waiting to see if I'd react. Testing. And I didn't know if he realized he was doing it. Or if he knew exactly what he was doing, and just hadn't said it out loud yet. Either way, I was in trouble. Because I wasn't imagining it anymore. And the line between just my friend and something else? It was already starting to blur. And a few nights later, it finally snapped. It happened on a random Thursday. Which somehow made it worse. Because there was no excuse for it, no party, no alcohol, no. We weren't thinking straight. Kind of situation. Just us. Archer texted me around 10. You up? I stared at it longer than I should have. Because ever since that morning on the couch, things had been off. Not bad. Just different. Charged. Like we were both aware of something neither of us wanted to say first. Yeah, I replied. Why? 3 dots popped up immediately. Come over. No explanation. No joke attached. Just that. And I don't know what it says about me that I didn't even hesitate. I grabbed my hoodie and left. When I got there, his apartment was quieter than usual. No TV. No music. Just the low hum of the fridge and the faint city noise through the window. Archer was leaning against the kitchen counter when I walked in, like he'd been waiting. You took your time, he said. I raised an eyebrow. It's been like 5 minutes. Still. There was a small smirk on his face, but it didn't fully land. Something about him felt tense. Not nervous exactly. Just focused. You gonna tell me why I'm here? I asked, dropping my keys on the table. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pushed off the counter and walked past me, close enough that his shoulder brushed mine. Not accidental. Definitely not accidental. Thought we could hang, he said, heading toward the living room. I turned slowly, watching him. You texted me like it was an emergency. He shrugged, grabbing a drink from the table. Maybe I just wanted to see you. That shouldn't have hit as hard as it did. But it did. Yeah? I said carefully. Yeah. And again, that look. The same one from earlier that week. Like he was studying me. Waiting. For what I didn't know. We ended up on the couch again. Same spot. Same setup. Different atmosphere. There was no movie this time. No distraction. Just silence stretching between us, thick enough that I could feel it in my chest. I leaned back slightly, trying to play it cool. You're being weird. Am I? Yes. He huffed out a quiet laugh, running a hand through his hair. Maybe. That's not reassuring. Another pause. Then he turned his head, looking straight at me. Can I ask you something? My stomach tightened. Depends, I said. Is it gonna make things more weird? A small smile tugged at his mouth. Probably. Great. But I didn't tell him not to ask. And I think we both knew why. He shifted slightly, turning his body more toward mine. Closer. You ever? He hesitated, like he was choosing his words carefully. You ever think about stuff you weren't supposed to? I frowned. That's vague as hell. He exhaled through his nose, a little frustrated. Okay, fine. Like crossing a line. That made my pulse spike. Because suddenly, this wasn't vague anymore. Archer, I said slowly. What are you actually asking? His jaw tightened slightly. For a second, I thought he might back off. Make a joke. Change the subject. Pretend this wasn't happening. But he didn't. Instead, he held my gaze and said, quieter now, You ever think about me like that? Everything in me went still. There it was. No more guessing. No more pretending. Just, out in the open. And I swear, for a second, I couldn't breathe. Because yeah, of course I had. More times than I'd ever admit. But saying that out loud? That was a different kind of risk. That's a dangerous question, I said, my voice lower than before. I know. And you're asking it anyway. Yeah. Neither of us looked away. The air between us felt tight. Like something was about to snap if one of us moved too fast. Or not at all. I swallowed. You first, I said. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. Then something else. Something almost relieved. He let out a small breath, glancing down for half a second before looking back at me. Yeah, he said. Simple. No hesitation this time. Yeah, I have. My heart slammed against my ribs. Hard. Because hearing it, actually hearing it, made everything real in a way I couldn't undo. And? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. He leaned in slightly. Not touching. But close enough that I could feel the shift. More than I probably should. That did it. That was the moment everything tipped. Because there was no going back after that. No pretending this was just friendship. No brushing it off. Just the two of us, sitting way too close, saying things we couldn't unsay. I let out a slow breath. Yeah, I admitted finally. Me too. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Heavy. Like the space between us had completely changed shape. Archer's eyes flicked down to my mouth for a split second. Then back up. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, I echoed. Neither of us moved. But we both felt it. That shift. That line. Finally gone. And the next move? That was his. I knew he was going to do something before he actually did it. It was in the way he looked at me. Not like before. Not like a friend. Something heavier. Focused. Like he'd already made a decision and was just waiting to see if I'd stop him. I didn't. Archer shifted closer. Slow enough that I could have pulled back. Fast enough that my body didn't. My back pressed slightly deeper into the couch as he leaned in, one hand bracing against the cushion beside my hip. Close. Way too close. Say something, I muttered, my voice barely steady. His lips twitched like he almost smiled. Why? He asked quietly. You want me to stop? That was unfair. Because he already knew the answer. I exhaled slowly, my fingers curling slightly against my thigh. No. His eyes flickered at that. Something in them softening and sharpening at the same time. Okay, he said. And then he closed the distance. The first contact wasn't rushed. It was hesitant. Careful. Like he was testing it, testing me. His lips brushed mine once, light, barely there. And for a split second, Everything in my head went completely silent. No overthinking. No panic. Just him. I felt it in my chest first. Then everywhere else. He pulled back just enough to look at me. Like he was checking. Making sure I wasn't about to freak out, push him away, say something that would undo it. I didn't. I didn't move at all. And I think that was all the answer he needed. Because the second time wasn't hesitant. His hands slid up, fingers brushing along my jaw before settling at the back of my neck, pulling me in just slightly. And this time, when our lips met, it wasn't a question. It was real. Firm. Intentional. My brain tried to catch up, but it was already too late. I kissed him back. I don't know how long it lasted. Seconds. Minutes. Time got weird. All I knew was the way everything shifted so fast it almost felt like I'd missed something. Like there should have been more build-up, more hesitation, more talking. But there wasn't. Just this. His hand tightening slightly at the back of my neck. Mine gripping the front of his shirt without even realizing when it happened. The way he moved closer until there was no space left between us at all. It wasn't messy. It wasn't rushed. It was intense. Like everything we hadn't said was suddenly coming out all at once. And that scared me. Not enough to stop. But enough that I felt it creeping in. That voice in the back of my head going, "What are you doing?" Because this was Archer. My best friend. The one constant thing I hadn't managed to screw up yet. And now, I was kissing him like this. Like it wasn't going to change everything. I pulled back first. Not far. Just enough to breathe. But the second I did, I felt it, that shift again. Reality trying to push back in. Archer didn't move away. If anything, he stayed right there, his forehead almost touching mine, his breathing just as uneven as mine probably was. "Christopher," he started, voice lower than I'd ever heard it. I swallowed. "Yeah." He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Because whatever he was about to say, I already knew it wasn't simple. None of this was. "We should probably," I started. "Don't," he cut in softly. I blinked. "Don't what?" "Don't do that thing where you overthink it and ruin it before we even figure out what it is." That hit a little too close. I let out a quiet breath. "I'm not ruining anything." "You are," he said, not harshly. Just honest. "I can literally see it happening." I looked away for a second, jaw tightening. Because yeah, he wasn't wrong. That's because this is. I gestured slightly between us. "This is not nothing, Archer." "I know." "Do you?" I looked back at him. "Because it kind of feels like you're acting like it is." His expression shifted. Serious now. Fully. "I'm not," he said. "I just don't want you to freak out and shut it down before we even try." "Try." The word settled heavy in my chest. "Try what?" I asked quietly. His gaze dropped to my mouth again for a second before coming back up. "This." And before I could respond, he kissed me again. And this time? I didn't hesitate. That was the moment everything really changed. Not just because we crossed the line, but because either of us pulled back from it. Not really. Not anymore. And I wish I could say it got easier after that. That everything just clicked into place. But it didn't. Because the second feelings get involved, nothing stays simple. After that night, things didn't go back to normal. They couldn't. And the weirdest part? We didn't talk about it. I stayed over. Not because we planned it. Not because we said anything like, "You should stay," or, "I don't want you to leave." It just happened. One minute we were on the couch, still too close, still caught in whatever that moment had turned into. And the next, it felt stupid to grab my keys and walk out like nothing had changed. So I didn't. We ended up in his room. Not in some dramatic way. No rushing, no big decision. Just drifting there like it made sense. Like we'd done it 100 times before. Except we hadn't. Not like this. We kept things quiet. Not awkward. Just careful. Like we both knew this was fragile, and one wrong move could snap it. We sat on his bed at first, side by side, shoulders barely touching. Neither of us speaking. Just existing in it. Trying to figure out what this was supposed to be now. "You're thinking too loud again," Archer said eventually. I let out a breath. "I'm not even saying anything. I can still tell." I glanced at him. "Yeah? What am I thinking then?" He turned his head slightly, meeting my eyes. "That you're about to convince yourself this was a mistake." I looked away immediately. Because that was exactly it. And I hated how easily he read me. "It's not that simple," I muttered. "I didn't say it was." Silence stretched again. Then quieter. "But it's not nothing either." That pulled my attention back to him. Because yeah, that part mattered. A lot. "You're not acting like it's not nothing," I said. "You just don't seem as freaked out as I am." He shrugged slightly, but there was something more behind it. "I've been thinking about this longer than you have." That made my stomach drop. "What does that mean?" Another pause. Like he was deciding how much to say. "Just means," he started, then stopped, running a hand through his hair. "This didn't come out of nowhere for me." I stared at him. Because that changed things. A lot. "How long?" I asked. He huffed out a quiet breath, almost like he didn't want to admit it. "I don't know." "A while." "A while," I repeated. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got," he said, glancing at me. "I didn't exactly keep track of when I started looking at you differently." Differently. The word stuck. "And you just didn't say anything?" I asked. He gave me a look. "What was I supposed to say, Christopher? Hey, I know we've been best friends for years, but I might be into you now?" "Yeah," I said. "That would have been helpful, actually." He laughed under his breath, shaking his head. "Right. Because that wouldn't have made things weird at all." I didn't respond. Because fair. But still. "You kissed me," I pointed out. "Yeah. So clearly you got over that concern." His expression shifted slightly at that. More serious. "Because I needed to know." "Know what?" "If it was just in my head, or if you felt it too." That hit harder than I expected. Because it wasn't reckless. It wasn't random. It was intentional. And for some reason, that made it even more real. We went quiet again after that. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one felt heavier. Like we were both sitting in the middle of something we couldn't undo. And didn't necessarily want to. I leaned back slightly, bracing my hands behind me. "So what now?" I asked. Archer didn't answer right away. Instead, he shifted, turning toward me more fully, one knee pressing into the mattress between us. "Closer again. Always closer. We figure it out," he said. "That's vague." "Yeah," he admitted. "Because I don't have a clean answer." I watched him carefully. Because I needed to know where his head was at. "Is this just—" I hesitated, choosing my words. "Curiosity?" The second I said it, I regretted it. Because it sounded smaller than it felt. But I needed clarity. Archer's expression tightened slightly. "No," he said, more firmly than I expected. "Then what is it?" He held my gaze. Didn't look away this time. "It's you." That knocked something loose in my chest. Because it wasn't about labels. Or confusion. Or experimenting. It was specific. Intentional. And way harder to ignore. Before I could respond, he moved again. Slow. Deliberate. His hand came up, brushing lightly against my arm, like he was giving me time to pull away if I wanted to. I didn't. So his fingers slid up, resting against the side of my neck. Warm. Steady. "Tell me to stop if you want to," he said quietly. I shook my head before he even finished the sentence. I don't. And that was all it took. This time, when he kissed me, it wasn't uncertain. It wasn't testing anything. It was deeper. More sure. Like we'd already crossed the line, and now we were just stepping further past it. My hand came up without thinking, gripping his shirt again, pulling him closer instead of holding back. And yeah, that should have scared me more. But it didn't. Not in that moment. In that moment, it just felt right. But the problem with moments like that? They don't stay contained. And sooner or later, reality catches up. And ours? It hit the next morning. Hard. I woke up before him. And I knew things were about to get complicated before I even opened my eyes. It took me a second to realize where I was. Different ceiling. Different light coming through the blinds. Archer's room. Then it all came back at once. The couch. The conversation. The way he said, "It's you." My chest tightened slightly. Because that wasn't something you could just brush off the next day. That wasn't casual. That wasn't something you pretend didn't happen. And then I felt it. Warmth. Close. Too close. I looked down. Archer was half sprawled against me, one arm wrapped loosely around my waist like it had just settled there naturally during the night. His face was turned slightly toward my chest, hair a mess, breathing slow and steady. Comfortable. Again. Always comfortable. Like this wasn't new for him. Like this was something he'd already accepted. And I didn't know what I was doing yet. That was the difference. I stared at the ceiling for a while, my thoughts running way too fast. Because now that the moment had passed, everything felt louder. All the questions. All the consequences. What this meant. What we were supposed to do now. And the biggest one. What happens if this goes wrong? Because this wasn't just some random guy. This was Archer. If this crashed, I wouldn't just lose this. I'd lose him. He shifted slightly against me, pulling me out of it. A small movement, but enough to make me tense without meaning to. His hand tightened just a little at my side. "Relax," he mumbled, voice still heavy with sleep. I let out a quiet breath. "You're awake?" "Barely." He didn't move away. Didn't even open his eyes. Just stayed there, like the conversation we hadn't had yet didn't exist. "How are you this calm?" I asked. That got a small, tired huff out of him. "I'm not calm," he said. "I'm just not panicking." "Same thing." "No," he muttered, finally lifting his head slightly to look at me. "It's not." His eyes met mine, still a little unfocused, but there was something steady underneath. Grounded. "You're already thinking 10 steps ahead," he added. "I can see it." I looked away. Because again, he wasn't wrong. "Someone has to," I said. "Why?" he asked simply. I frowned. "What do you mean, why? Why does it have to be you?" he said. "Why can't we just stay here for a second without you trying to figure out how it ends?" That hit harder than I expected. Because I didn't have a good answer. I just always did that. Tried to get ahead of things before they had the chance to blow up. "Because this matters," I said finally, quieter now. "I know it does." "Then how are you not?" I stopped, frustrated. "How are you not more careful?" His expression shifted slightly at that. Not defensive. Just more serious. "I am being careful," he said. "I'm just not running from it." I swallowed. Because that's exactly what it felt like I was doing. Even now. "I'm not running," I said. "You are," he replied gently. "Just in your head." That silence again. But this one felt different. Less tense. More honest. Like we were actually standing in the same place for once. Not one of us pulling forward while the other held back. Archer shifted, pushing himself up slightly so he was leaning over me just a bit. Not overwhelming. Just closer. "You regret it?" he asked. Direct. No hesitation. I didn't answer right away. Because that question deserved a real answer. Not something defensive. Not something safe. No, I said finally. And that was the truth. I didn't regret it. Not even a little. What I was afraid of was everything that came after. His shoulders relaxed slightly at that, like he'd been bracing for the opposite. Okay, he said. Okay? I repeated. Yeah. A small pause. That's all I needed to know. I let out a breath, something in my chest loosening just a little. But not completely. Because there was still too much we hadn't figured out. Archer, I started. What are we doing? There it was. The question. The one we couldn't keep avoiding. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied me for a second, really looked at me. Like he was trying to figure out how much honesty I could handle. We're not pretending this didn't happen, he said. Obviously. We're also not rushing to label it before we understand it. I nodded slowly. That made sense. And? I asked. And, he added, voice quieter now, we don't pull away just because it's complicated. That part was harder. Because pulling away would be the easy option. Safer. Cleaner. Less risk. But also, not what I wanted. I exhaled slowly. Okay, I said. And I meant it. At least, I thought I did. Because agreeing to something in the moment? That's easy. Living with it? That's where things get real. And we were about to find that out. Very quickly. Because later that day, everything got tested. It got tested sooner than I expected. And not in some dramatic, obvious way. Just real life. We left his apartment together that morning. That alone felt weird. Not uncomfortable. Just different. Like there was something sitting between us now that hadn't been there before. Something we were both aware of but not fully addressing out loud. We didn't hold hands. Didn't touch much at all, actually. But there were moments. Small ones. His shoulder brushing mine as we walked. The way he stayed just a little closer than usual. Like he didn't want distance, but also didn't know what we were allowed to do yet. I kept replaying what we'd said. Don't pull away just because it's complicated. Easy to agree to. Harder to actually follow through on. Campus was busy. Way too busy. People everywhere, conversations overlapping, the usual noise of everything going on at once. And suddenly us, felt a lot more exposed than it had in his room. Like it wasn't just ours anymore. Hey! I'd barely had time to react before someone clapped a hand on Archer's shoulder. Ryan. One of his friends. The kind of guy who always showed up loud, always had something to say. What's up, man? Ryan grinned, then glanced at me. Christopher. Hey, I said, trying to keep it casual. Normal. Archer nodded. What's going on? Party tonight, Ryan said. You're coming, right? Archer hesitated. Just for a second. But I caught it. And I don't think Ryan did, but I did. Because I knew him. Knew how quick he usually was to say yes. Yeah, Archer said finally. Probably. Another small thing. Another difference. Ryan didn't question it. Good. It's gonna be packed, he said, already half turning away. I'll text you the details. And just like that, he was gone. We stood there for a second after. Same place. Same noise around us. But the energy shifted. You don't have to go, I said before I could stop myself. Archer glanced at me. I didn't say I wasn't going. I know, I exhaled. Forget it. But he didn't let it go. You don't want me to go? He asked. It's not that. Then what is it? I hesitated. Because I didn't have a clean answer. Just a feeling. And those are harder to explain. I don't know what this is yet, I admitted. And throwing a party into it just feels like a lot. Archer studied me for a second. Not annoyed. Just thinking. Then come with me, he said. That caught me off guard. What? Come with me, he repeated. That way it's not just me dealing with it. I let out a small breath, almost laughing. That's not exactly less complicated. Maybe not, he said. But it's honest. Honest. That word again. And yeah, he had a point. Avoiding things wasn't going to make them easier. It just delayed them. Okay, I said finally. And the second I did, I felt it. That shift again. Like we'd just taken another step forward without fully knowing where it was leading. The party was exactly what you'd expect. Loud. Packed. Too many people in a space that wasn't meant for that many people. Music blasting, drinks everywhere, conversations overlapping into one big blur. Normally, this kind of thing didn't bother me. But that night? Everything felt heightened. Every look. Every interaction. Every second I was aware of Archer somewhere in the room. At first, we stayed together. Close. Talking, pretending things were normal. But it didn't take long for that to fall apart. Because people kept pulling him away. Friends. People he knew. Girls. That part hit harder than I expected. Not because he was doing anything wrong. But because I didn't know what the rules were anymore. Could he flirt? Was that still normal? Were we exclusive? God, that sounded insane. We hadn't even defined anything yet. And still. The thought of him acting like nothing had changed? It didn't sit right. I was halfway through a drink I didn't even want when I saw it. Archer, across the room. Talking to some girl. She was close. Too close. Laughing at something he said, her hand resting lightly on his arm. And he didn't pull away. My chest tightened instantly. That sharp, uncomfortable feeling hitting before I could stop it. Jealousy. Which I had absolutely no right to feel. And yet, there it was. Strong. Immediate. Unavoidable. I looked away. Because staring wasn't going to help. And honestly, I didn't trust my reaction if I kept watching. This was exactly what I was worried about. No labels. No boundaries. Just guessing. And hoping we didn't screw it up. Christopher. I turned at the sound of my name. Archer. Right in front of me now. Closer than I expected. How long have you been standing there? I asked. Long enough, he said. His expression was different. Serious again. Focused. You disappeared, he added. I shrugged. You were busy. Something flickered across his face. I wasn't. It's fine. I cut in, even though it wasn't. We're at a party. You can talk to people. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? I asked, a little sharper than I meant to. He stepped closer. Lowered his voice. It's about you walking away the second you think this is too much. I blinked. Because that wasn't what I expected him to say. I didn't walk away, I said. You did, he replied. Mentally, at least. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. Can you blame me? No, he said. But I'm not going to let you pretend it doesn't matter either. That landed hard. Because again, he wasn't wrong. I crossed my arms slightly. So what, I'm just supposed to stand there and be fine with whatever? No, he said. You're supposed to talk to me. I am talking to you. Now you are, he said. There was a pause. The noise of the party fading slightly around us. Not gone. Just less important. I didn't like that, I admitted finally. His expression softened just a little. Yeah, he said. I figured. And I know I don't really get to. You do, he cut in. I frowned. Do what? Feel that way. I searched his face. Because I needed to understand exactly what he meant. You weren't just my friend last night, he said quietly. You're not just my friend now. That changed everything again. Because this time? He said it out loud. No hesitation. No backing off. Clear. Direct. Real. My chest tightened in a completely different way. What are we then? I asked. He didn't look away. Didn't hesitate. We're figuring it out, he said. But I'm not treating you like you don't matter while we do. That was it. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't just confusion. Or curiosity. Or something temporary. This was real. Messy. Unclear. But real. And for the first time since this started, I stopped trying to pull away from it. The rest of the night didn't magically fix everything. But it changed something. After that conversation, we didn't go back to pretending. We didn't suddenly act like a full-on couple either. It was somewhere in between. Honest. That was the difference. We stayed close after that. Not glued together, not making it obvious to everyone, but there was no more distance between us. No more guessing where we stood in that moment. If Archer moved, I noticed. If I shifted, he adjusted with me. Like we were finally on the same page, even if we hadn't written the whole story yet. At some point, the party got too loud. Too crowded. Too much. "Wanna get out of here?" Archer asked, leaning closer so I could hear him. I didn't even hesitate. Yeah. The night air hit different outside. Cool. Quiet. Like everything finally slowed down enough for me to think clearly again. We walked without really deciding where we were going. Just away. Side by side. Close enough that our hands brushed once. Then again. And then. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. Our fingers laced together naturally. Like it wasn't the first time. Even though it was. "I thought I messed it up back there," I said after a minute. "You didn't," Archer replied. "I kind of did." He shook his head slightly. "You reacted. That's not the same thing." I glanced at him. Still. He looked back at me, a small smile tugging at his mouth. "I'd be more worried if you didn't react." That made me huff out a quiet laugh. Good to know. We kept walking. No rush. No pressure. Just figuring it out one step at a time. And for the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel like I was chasing an answer. I was just in it. We ended up back at his place. Again. Which, at this point, wasn't really surprising. But this time felt different. Lighter. Less uncertain. Not because everything was solved, but because we weren't avoiding it anymore. Inside, things were quieter. Slower. We didn't jump back into anything right away. No rushing. No trying to recreate the intensity from before. Just being there. Together. Archer dropped onto the couch, glancing at me. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah." A small pause. Then, more honestly, "Yeah, I am." He studied me for a second, like he was making sure I meant it. Then he nodded back. "Good." I sat down next to him. Close, but not overwhelming. Comfortable. And for a minute, neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. Because for once, the silence wasn't filled with tension. It was easy. "I meant what I said," Archer spoke up eventually. I glanced at him. "About what?" "You not being just my friend anymore." My chest tightened slightly. Not in a bad way. Just real. "I know," I said. "And I'm not going to treat this like it's temporary," he added. That part mattered more than anything else. Because that was the fear. That this would fade. That it was just a moment. A phase. Something we'd regret later. "You don't have to have it all figured out," he continued. "I just need you to not shut down when it gets complicated." I let out a slow breath. Because yeah, that was the part one had to work on. "I'll try," I said. He smirked slightly. "You'll try. Don't push it." He laughed quietly, nudging my shoulder. And just like that, It felt normal again. But not in the old way. In a new way. I leaned back into the couch, exhaling. You know what's weird? I said. What? I really thought you were just my friend. Archer glanced at me, something softer in his expression now. Yeah, he said. Me too. And that was the truth. For both of us. Because somewhere along the way, without either of us fully realizing it, it stopped being that simple. Stopped being just late night talks, shared jokes, easy comfort. It turned into something else. Something quieter. Deeper. Something we didn't name until we couldn't ignore it anymore. And yeah, it was messy. Confusing. A little risky. But it was real. And for once, I wasn't trying to run from it. I turned my head slightly, looking at him. So, what now? Archer met my gaze, a small smile forming. Now? He said. Yeah. He leaned back, relaxed, but his eyes stayed on mine. Now we see where this goes. No pressure. No perfect answer. Just forward. And honestly, for the first time, that felt like enough.